afternoon. This is your Pan-African show called Afreeqa with your host Katsalork Sefu. Today we dive again into the fashion world. I would like to say thank you for coming to the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Could you please introduce yourself?
Okay. My name is Rahel Edegelegn, and I am a fashion designer. I have a brand called Rahel, Fashion and Apparel. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. That's great. That's great. So before we get into the questions, I'd like to know a little bit about your background, how you grew up, what school you went to, just so we can all have an understanding of how you came to do what you're doing currently. Because I've read somewhere that you were also an engineer.
Yeah.
So very interesting how you went from that to this. So
yeah,
please.
I'm actually a dropout of engineering school.
Okay, so you never finished it?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so you can tell us your story.
Okay, so yeah, I grew up loving fashion, obviously, but I think I got inspired when I was a kid. My aunt used to bring around fashion magazines, and I used to see that and the designer, what is that, you know? And then I learned about it somehow, but through the years, I went to school just like everybody else, but I was, somehow pressured by family to pursue engineering or medicine, and yeah, I ended up studying engineering. I went to campus with family pressure and peer pressure because my friends also went there. So I went to Nazareth University, Adama, and by the second year, I dropped out.
You were like, this is not me.
Yeah. I wanted to study fashion outside of the country, obviously, but at that time, it didn't happen. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna find a school here, and I found a school, and I took some courses, and that was back in 2013. I think I was quite young.
What school was it?
Miracle Fashion Design.
Okay.
I don't think they're around now. It's closed, I think. I'm not sure. Yeah, sadly. But I took some courses there, and also during COVID time, I took fashion courses online as well.
It was beautiful. Can you share more about your journey because this is the same thing, okay? Studying engineering to becoming a successful fashion designer and entrepreneur with Rahel Collections.
Yeah, okay. So it all started out, I launched a brand in 2015, and then it was a different name at that time. So I was doing a bit of everything, still discovering myself. I used to do dresses, casuals, everything. And then in 2020, after COVID hit, I had to sit down and think about it really. And then I also changed it to my name, and then I added a letter A after it that represents Africa. So it became Rahel. Yeah, and then I started thinking about what should the purpose be, why am I really doing this? And then self-discovery always inspires me, self-discovery, self-love, doing something after your name, building your own business, building your own brand. So I named it after my name, and my brand name is called Rahel. So that's how it all went.
How does Rahel Collection aim to promote Pan-Africanism and sustainability through its Afro-Bohemian clothing and apparel?
A stands for Africa, and I think it's all about self-discovery, and I've noticed that we don't respect ourselves mostly as, Africans, and then we don't see the culture within us. We're more attracted to the Western culture. And then I thought about it really. I'm Ethiopian, but at the same time I'm African, So, and as Ethiopians as well, we usually don't consider ourselves as Africans, sorry to say that, most of the time, We're told, we look more Arab, our generation. That's what people say, And then.
But how do you think?
To be honest, I don't think we look Arabs, because I've been to a few countries in Africa, and everywhere I went, they thought I was local. In Rwanda, in Tanzania, like pretty much Kenya especially, they think I'm Kenyan, and I tell them I'm actually half Kenyan most of the time. So I don't think we don't look African. I don't. So that sort of pushed me to represent, to just dig more, study more about Africa, and cultures. And then I discovered that we have different signs everywhere in different types, you know. So I've done a lot of collections with different symbols. Yeah, and last year collection was called Ginyami, which was from Ghana. And I had an opportunity to actually present it in Ghana as well. So I try to go to different tribes and,
That's brilliant.
Yeah,
That's absolutely brilliant
patterns,
because as an Ethiopian, because Ethiopian itself is so diverse, and I don't think we've touched on all of our cultural clothing or even neck pieces, jewelry, and all of that. But I'm very, very happy to have met you because the first time I saw your line was by the Adinkra symbols, and I was quite amazed that actually there was an Ethiopian sister that started implementing those on her designs. And how did your research on Adinkra symbols during your time in Ghana influence this collection? Because I think your time there influenced you in having that particular, the symbols added into your clothing design.
Yeah, it's actually the other way around, to be honest.
It is?
Yeah.
Brilliant. That's even better. I like that better.
Yeah, because I sort of researched the West African culture somehow, and then I found this Adinkra signs from Ghana, and then their meanings as well. And I'm like, okay, this is what I do. Why don't I represent that in my clothing? And I did a whole collection line, which actually won an award in 2022 in African Mosaic. So I was actually very proud of that. And then I got a chance to present it in a fashion show in Ghana. I went there and I presented it, and yeah, it got sold out at the time. I was
It
quite
got sold
happy.
out.
Yeah.
You see, that was what I was. How did they? How was
Yeah.
the reception there?
Yeah.
Obviously, it was very well.
Yeah, definitely.
Your perspective, on your perspective, how can African fashion designers integrate distinct African designs and symbols into their works to stand out on a global scale, moving away from the dominance of Western fashion ideals?
And I think self-discovery is quite important. I think.
Know thyself, basically.
Yeah, just know yourself, love your culture, you know, and then dive into it, and you'll find something you like, and then you can develop that. And we can actually change the fashion to become an international attire, you know, by actually working through it and by being consistent. Yeah. That's why I feel self-discovery is quite important.
Can you provide examples of traditional wares that you believe can be developed into beautiful creations to meet global standards? You know, when we mean global standards, first of all, what do we mean? What is global standards? First question. Second question is, as Ethiopia, because we all shop around, we all go to places and we see, in some we disappoint, in some we're happy. So do you think Ethiopia is ready for the global market in how we make our products? Because our finish is what I always have an issue with, and everybody else. So if you could also, you know, tag along with that too, that would be great.
Something I noticed from How of Afreeqa this year is we have amazing designers in Ethiopia. We have so many fashion designers that know themselves, that know that's what they want to do. But the problem is we don't have enough resource, we have enough labor, definitely, even cheaper labor than compared to the rest of the world. But it's just accessory-wise, a lot of things-wise, we're just very short. Yeah, it's very sad. So people have to go probably to China or bring it from Nairobi or somewhere. And also you understand how it can be very hard to bring the stuff through Ethiopia because of, you know, customs issue. So I think if that can be avoided, I think it's quite possible for our clothes to go international, as long as the designers know what they're doing and they want to be consistent. I've seen a lot of designers that inspire me here.
Absolutely.
It's actually crazy. Yes. Yeah.
This year I also was at the hub and I got to see products that actually could put us, you know what I mean, on the global market.
We could use a bit of like courses when it comes to branding, finishing, and labeling and stuff. Except that, I think we're good. But we need support definitely from the government everywhere.
Because it's a new market. It's a new market, especially when we're trying to compete with the rest of Africa.
Yeah,
Because the rest of
definitely.
Africa is,
Yeah, yeah,
you've been to Ghana and you've been to Nairobi and Rwanda, and the fashion there is a little bit higher than ours, I do believe. So in order to put ourselves up there, you see, I'm glad that I'm having this conversation with you, because as a designer, what is it that you need? So let's say you're speaking to somebody that's sitting in the government office, and the industry, the fashion industry, what is it lacking? What does it need support on? Because you are also a new designer coming up, and you are also a young new designer. So if you could describe to us your needs. For example, you said hardwares. Hardware is just, I find it very sad that we are having a problem. There should be one design house that actually manufactures and sells those, not only here, but throughout the continent. So if you could tell us the things that we lack for us to be in the global market.
definitely. There was a panel discussion that happened at Hub of Africa in the morning, and they invited someone from the government. And I remember we had so many questions, but we didn't have so much time to ask
Those questions.
Yeah. So one thing I would say is there's a huge possibility, or there's a huge platform for people that actually export rather than people selling here. So if you export, they give you more space to manufacture and more like ways for you to export, which is good. But at the same time, how about the people that are here?
Local.
Why can't it be allowed for us to manufacture for local products as well? Why can't we have a way to have the hardwares come into town and then for us to use them? You know, so it's easier to have the Western or Chinese, products in town than for them to allow us to have more space to manufacture and ways to bring in the hardware. So I just think there's a huge gap when it comes to that, and then you have to be in an association to ask these questions, to go to the government, which is a good point he made. But at the same time, I think maybe as designers, also as business people, we have to get together and also maybe ask these questions. But it's actually very hard if you're not export. So that's why people are focusing on exporting more. If you ask me, I export more than selling here, unless I have a pop-up or like a show like Hub of Africa that introduce the market. I don't do it here. I would rather just send my stuff, and then get a feedback, which is sad.
I'm sorry, that's not fair for the local buyers.
Yeah.
Because, this has been started, maybe in the last 4 or 5 years, we've decided to buy local, make local, do everything local. So that means that you also have consumers here, correct? I'm a buyer. So if I'm not catered to, then where am I going to buy my local brands, my local goods? So my next question is, if you export, do you sell for local customers? Are you allowed to sell for local customers?
Do you mean in here?
Here, if you're an export.
Yeah, definitely you
allowed
are.
to sell to
I mean,
us?
it depends on every designer and brand, if they're willing to sell or not. Me, I do sell when it comes to pop-ups, and I do my own shows and then like that. But unless I'm provided a space where I can sell, without any problem, it would be very hard. That's why I said the system is more open to export than selling in local. That's something that needs to be resolved, and we need to have more access to the government customs, a lot of things for us to sell here. Some designers actually start the product here and finish it off outside of the country because they can't find some accessories, which is very sad, So it's not that the designers don't want to be. Of course, they started the whole business to help the country as well, but we get pushed to exporting more, Yeah.
Could you give us an example? Like, for example, even though you're a little bit different because you actually make other clothing as opposed to just Ethiopian cultural dresses. But when we come to the cultural dresses, because it's easier to do whatever you want with material like what you have. But when it comes to Abasha lips especially, how would you be able to make our Ethiopian cultural dress more wearable for the rest of the continent, is what I'm saying. Because usually when you see our dresses, we either have crosses on them or a few other elaborate designs that maybe are not appealing to the rest of the continent. So how can we push that and open it so they could wear it also? It's more wearable.
Yeah, so when it comes to the like Habesha dresses, what I have done till now is put the signs, the African patterns by embroidery onto the dresses.
So you have them embroidered?
Yes, you get them embroidered, because when it comes to paint, I paint on the casual wears, but not on the dresses, because our fabric can be it's very hard to manage. So when you wash it, it might be difficult for it to to maintain. So I embroider it most of the time, and then it can be wearable in most of I've tried it in Kenya and Ghana. Ghana, it was very hard for them to accept it. Actually, at first, even in Rwanda, they were like, isn't it a bit too thin, as a material? I'm like, it's the culture, that's how it's worn. It's cotton, it's handmade, So, and then they wear it, casually, I mean, on an event. And then I even get comments like, how do I wash it and stuff. So if you tell them somehow, it would be easier for them to wear it. Yeah, but to be honest, when it comes to Habesha dresses, the customers are more Habesha people than the rest of the world. Yeah.
I know, it would be nice to see, your Ghanaian sister or your Kenyan brother wearing an Ethiopian attire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is an Ethiopian attire, but it's more universal. When you see that cotton, then it's you look at it and you know where it's from.
Yeah,
you
definitely,
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why. How were you considered the most creative? You mentioned this earlier, but I want a little bit more detail. You were considered the most creative and innovative designer at the African Mosaic Fashion event in 2022, right? Can you elaborate on the key factors that contributed to this recognition?
Okay, so I think few things, we had a sort of interview, and few things I mentioned was they asked about sustainability, and then the purpose of the brand, and also what materials that could be used in different seasons. So these are the three things I answered, and the first one was sustainability-wise, the fabrics I use at the moment are cottons, and I can find it as much as I can from resources from Bahardar or everywhere. So that makes the business sustainable more, and using handmade materials make it more sustainable. So I mentioned that, and they also asked me, how can it be worn in different seasons, So I mentioned silk is actually sustainable, and then it can be worn in summertime as well. So that's something I'm trying to work on, is finding more silk materials and using it, and finding a way to make it sink into my brand. And the other
very
thing,
interesting.
Yeah, the other thing I answered was, what's the purpose of the brand and why do you use these colors and stuff? So I told them, yeah, Rahel is all about self-discovery, self-love, and wellness. So I told them I advocate mental health as well, and the clothes I make are usually earth-toned. They give some sort of peace, and also comfortable, very loose, bohemian, and you can wear them and feel quite comfortable. It can be a jacket, it can be a pants, but it's still very loose, and it gives some type of aesthetic to me. So that made them somehow, choose me, and I was very happy about
your
that.
Answer.
Yeah.
How do you see the role of African fashion designers in challenging the influence of global village concept and bringing a distinctive African culture influence to the fashion industry?
I think few things that globally introduce Africa is first music, and then fashion, and then you can mention the rest, I guess. So when it comes to the music internationally, especially West African music, went very, respected and viral. And for us, I think for fashion designers, if we are very consistent and very pushing, and grabbing every opportunity we can get to take our market there, I think we can somehow win the world as well. I think the fashion is getting actually great as well, And I've seen a lot of designers from this year went to Paris, Fashion Week, Portugal. Yeah, I'm quite proud of them. So we're actually doing really well. That's how I feel.
Beyond your personal success, does Rahel or do you have any broader goals or visions for the future of Ethiopian and Pan-African fashion?
I think my goal would be to somehow connect the disconnect that's happening between, that's there between Ethiopia and Africa, and then Africa and the rest of the world somehow, you know. But definitely, I don't want to mention it again so that we don't talk about it much, but like the whole Ethiopians are not, you know, African situation.
We're all
need
working
to be,
on it.
yeah, need to be very, it needs to be closed. That gap needs to be closed, yeah. So that's something I think about, and fashion can be very, you know, can do that, very much so.
Considering your background in engineering, do you find ways to merge your engineering knowledge with your fashion endeavors, perhaps influencing the design or production process of your collection?
Yeah, definitely. So I wanted to get into architecture actually, and then it didn't happen. You know, sadly, me and my friend applied, and it didn't happen for us. So I just went in and joined a civil engineering part of. It's called geomatics engineering, which you know, I tried to go about. It was about GPS system. It didn't connect with a lot of things for me, but I would just mention when it comes to digital fashion, something I want to develop is maybe working digitally, and then it's part of engineering as well. You can use a lot of NFT, a lot of ways to work through fashion as well. So I think some things I can use is when it comes to digital, definitely.
So it did help.
Yeah, if not so, it's not connected at all.
No, it's not at all. That's why I was like, maybe depending on which side of engineering that you had taken, because drafting is also engineering, right? So if you had taken drafting, I think you would have enjoyed drafting. Yeah. That's why I asked. Okay.
I took TD, technical drawing. Definitely, it sort of helped me into structuring. Yeah, I really love doing that on clothes and stuff. So yeah, that's why I wanted to get into architecture, but I think it saved me time.
So now that we have finished our conversation, we are now going to have a fashion show for you.
Yes.
So let me go call them. Tell me about, this is a belt. It's a dress and a belt. It's two pieces.
Yes.
Okay.
So these are the Bohemian dresses I make, and the belt is a mix of cotton and khaki, and I painted on it using some symbols from Morocco. Yeah, it's just a very casual.
Can we take the belt off to see what the dress looks like all by itself?
Yes, definitely.
I see what you mean with the painting.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Yeah. So this is another piece, also. It's a men's coat, sort of, a Bohemian coat and trousers. So these are mainly the colors I use most of the time. So I tried to paint on them using the same kind of paint. Yeah.
So when you paint on them, these are okay to be washed?
Yes,
They're
definitely.
not,
Yeah.
okay,
It's acrylic. Yeah. So.
Okay. Thank you. This is going to be our second look.
Yeah, so it's another piece, two pieces I have. It's just a different color in the same Morocco tribe inspirations.
Brilliant.
Yeah, let's just see them.
Alrighty, you can come.
hand woven actually.
Thank you.
Shimmana.
That's
Yes.
shimmana.
Yes.
Okay, because it is very different. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
You should make these for women too.
Yeah, I actually do. I do
think
have
we will
pieces.
appreciate it too.
Yeah.
I love it. Those are very, very nicely done pieces. So these are the same lines that you actually showed on the runway, right, at Hub? So tell me about your experience of Hub, because it being our only fashion oriented event in our city, I'm sure all of our fashion designers get excited about the Hub because you get to see, if you're lucky, you get to show. But the best part is you get to be a part of this exciting 1 week fashion week. So if you could tell me about your experience.
Okay, so something I forgot to mention actually is I got mentored by the Hub also. So they had they had a mentorship program, a first mentorship program in 2022 as well, which the show was in 2023. But yeah, so I was mentored there, and this was my third time presenting there at the Fashion Week, and my experience is always great, and it is a huge platform for us designers in town to present, even East Africa, you know. So I had a great time.
Great. So we definitely cannot pass by not mentioning the people that put Hub together. I just wish them well, and I wish they would do more of it because I think twice a year would be better than once a year, to also open up areas of what is missing, what we need when it comes to the fashion industry. But thank you again for giving me this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Rahel.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This is your Pan-African show called Afreeqa with your host, Gazalorg Seifu. Thank you.